Gitaxian Probe and Cabal Therapy meet again. We're back for the 2017 Air Battles versus Bosh N Roll. Let's go check it out. In front of you is the Epic Storm from 2017, and that's because today we're doing Air Battles versus my podcast co-host, Brian Coval, aka Bosh N Roll, in Air Battles, a series brought to you by Matthew Story and his cohorts who have been doing donation decks for both me and Brian in this series. And unfortunately, this will be the last one. The funding dried up, and well, I'm going to be honest with you, so did the viewership. People just are not watching these, at least on my side. They might be watching Brian's, but for me, they're my lowest performing videos by a lot the last few times we've done them. And I feel like that is part of the reason why the funding dried up. People didn't like paying for a product that just wasn't doing well. And yeah, so 2017 will be the last one, which I think is okay. Because if after that you get into like the War of the Spark era that people don't really like with the Start of Fire design. And I think that this is an okay for the last one. We originally planned for 6. This is the 3rd one, and I'm okay with that. So Matthew and friends, thank you for your support up until this point. But I'm glad we're at least getting to finish this with one of my favorite lists of all time, featuring Gitaxian Probe, a free peek if you pay for Axion Life, and then Cabal Therapy, which allows you to look at your opponent's hand and then discard cards equal to whatever you named. And when you have Gitaxian Probe, you look at their hand, you'll see that they have 2 copies of a certain card with Cabal Therapy, discard them. And then in today's list, we're playing Empty the Warrens, which creates Goblin tokens and has Storm. Well, Cabal Therapy has Flashback, Sacrifice a Creature. So you can actually use these Goblin tokens you just created from Empty the Warrens to then discard your opponent again using Cabal Therapy. This was huge at the time. And I remember the innovation behind the 3 copies of sideboard Empty the Warrens came from AJ Kerrigan, and that really catapulted this list to a lot of success in that era, because we would board in up to 4 Empty the Warrens, 3 in the main deck, 1 in the sideboard, with all of the Cabal Therapies versus blue decks, and it just ran them over. So that's what we're doing here today, and I'm just really excited to play it for you. Another level up is that we're no longer running the gold lands that we were in the previous 2 videos. We have a real mana base now. And with that, we get to play fetch lands like Bloodstained Mire and Polluted Delta. And I'll tell a story about those later on while I play. But yeah, so we have real fetchable lands now instead of the gold lands. We're actually playing 13 instead of 12, so we have more consistency there. We're running a Bayou in the sideboard for the sideboard copies of Xanad Swarm and Abrupt Decay. There's a lot to like here, but a big level up, in my opinion, was Magic Origins with the printing of Dark Petition and Void Snare. You now have a Burning Wish target that can go get ad nauseum with Dark Petition, or a catch-all answer like Void Snare to beat something like Gitaxian. So you don't have to play Chain of Vapor anymore. So that's the list that we're playing today in Air Battles. I hope you enjoy it. Everyone, thank you for watching it. I really do appreciate the support. And I'm sorry it didn't get more viewership. I did my best, but that's what it is. So let's excuse me. Let's hop on into match number 1 versus Brian, and I will see you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You can also show your support by becoming a member of this channel. You get sweet perks such as badges, emotes, early access to videos, exclusive members-only content, and access to our members Discord section. As you increase the tiers, there are other rewards such as shop discounts, sideboard guides, and even free donation decks. Click the join button down below to find out more. We also have other ways you can support us, like theepicstorm.com/shop, or submitting a donation deck via theepicstorm.com/donation decks. That's enough for now. Let's play some Magic. Welcome to the first match. I've won the die roll versus Bosh N Roll, aka Brian Coval, and we're on the play. And Brian is playing Grixis Delver in the first match. Here we have a turn 1 Empty the Warrens for a bunch. We'll keep this. So this hand's really interesting because you do have a turn 1 Gitaxian Probe and then 10 Goblins versus a likely Deathrite Shaman deck. And that probably wins the race. The issue is, if Brian has a Force of Will, I can't win through it, assuming that Brian is smart and forces one of my pieces of mana. So instead, I think I'm going to just pass the turn and then try for a win next turn that could actually beat Force of Will. So I mentioned this in the deck tech. I had a short story for you on my Polluted Deltas and Bloodstained Mires. So in 2017, which is the era that we're playing today, I started to plan to propose to my now wife, and I instead had to get an appendectomy to remove my appendix, and I paid something like $5,000 out of the hospital because my insurance only covered 80%. And I waited a few months, no more bills came in, and we then planned a trip to Europe, which was also a part of GP Birmingham or whatever era it was. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to propose to my wife. Let's buy a wedding ring. And so I bought this really expensive wedding ring, leaving myself with a smaller cushion than I would have liked. And I ended up buying the ring. Around the same time period, I had a really good offer for Japanese foil fetch lands, which is where these come in. And I was like, this offer's so good, I'm going to just blow through my safety net and I'm going to buy the Japanese foil fetch lands. And so I did so, and I still had a little bit of a cushion left, but not as much of a cushion as I would have liked. And let's see what Brian has here. Did have the Force of Will and a Young Pyromancer. Let's try Dark Ritual. See if Brian forces this. No. Rite of Flame. Come on, Brian, force it. And basically, I bought these fetch lands I did not need, and then as we're about to go to Europe for Birmingham, the GP plus, you know, we went to Belgium and some other places. Literally like 2 days before the flight, I received another bill in the mail because I guess all of the $5,000 I paid the hospital for my appendectomy only covered the doctors and not the hospital. And I had to pay another $4,000 to the hospital, leaving me flat broke. And I was like, this was such a dumb thing. Why did I buy these fetch lands? In hindsight, I'm very glad I did. Everything ended up being okay. And, you know, I was a little nervous for a while because my bank account was practically empty. But those fetch lands now have gone way up. Like, it's insane. Like, a Japanese foil Pluto Delta these days is like $5,000. And I didn't even pay a fraction of that. So it ended up working out. And I'm probably never going to sell them, so the price doesn't really matter. But I'm glad that I own them. And Brian concedes. Nice. Okay, so we win game number 1. Do I want to bring in the Xantid Swarms? So if we did, I think you'd probably want to take out maybe like the Chrome Moxen. You'd take out Chrome Mox and you'd bring in 2 Xantid Swarms in the Bayou. I don't hate it. Let's try this out. Boarding out Chrome Mox in your Ad Nauseam deck is certainly risky, but I don't think we're trying to necessarily win with a really fast Ad Nauseam in this matchup, so it's probably okay. Like, I definitely remember the Bloodstained Mires were $250 each at the time, like $1,000 for a playset. And, like, now, I'm pretty sure they're like $3,500, almost $4,000 each. So, like, the, you know, gain on those Bloodstained Mires is a lot. Like I said, I'm probably never going to sell them. Oh, I just realized I didn't board. The whole point of this, I opened up empty again. I didn't board in the empties. That's the whole game plan behind today's deck list. What am I doing? Too busy talking about stories about fetch lands. But the deltas are a ton of money too. I don't remember the exact amount I paid for them. I think it was less. I mean, obviously, it's less than what I paid, but I don't remember. I'd have to like go look it up. But the offer was too good to pass up on. Yeah, I definitely messed this up though. I was supposed to bring in the other empties. Delver of Secrets. Cabal Therapy. I think we're just going to play Bloodstained Mire and pass. Delver of Secrets. Does not transform. Brainstorm. Plays Flooded Strand. Fetches. Underground Sea. And another copy of Delver of Secrets. Okay. It's in there. I'll go to 19. No Surveil lands in 2017. We draw another Ponder. We'll grab Underground Sea. Play Ponder. I played it on turn 2 to avoid a daze. I'm not sure if that was correct. I don't think we want any of these. We'll shuffle. And pass the turn. So the Delvers are definitely going to transform here. Brian played a Brainstorm, so if they don't transform, I'd be incredibly surprised. Brian reveals Gitaxian Probe. Looks at my hand, goes down to 15. Plays another copy of Brainstorm. Wasteland, probably goes after Badlands. No, goes after the Underground Sea. We'll take 6 down to 12. 4 cards in Brian's hand. Another Ponder. Ugh. I just need something to do, and Ponder was not it. Play Cabal Therapy. We'll name Force of Will. Double Daze Wasteland. That's not good for me. We'll grab the Volcanic. Play Lotus Petal. Play Ponder. Can I do anything with this? I don't think so. So if I were to take Probe, yeah, it's not good enough. So I could look at like a Gitaxian Probe line, into like the sideboard past In Flames, but I don't have enough mana for that. So I'd have to like ponder into another Rite of Flame, and then like Gitaxian Probe into an LED after getting Wastelanded. I have to shuffle this. Back when I used to play a lot of Ponders, people would joke in my comment section about how I never kept them. They're like, why do you play this card you never keep? And it's sort of true. Like in this deck, Ponder is a card that gives you quality over time. And in this deck, you're really looking for a specific card. So that whole joke has a lot of point to it. And unfortunately, we just didn't do anything. So we're going to lose this one. And now I'm going to sideboard correctly. But I think I'm actually going to board out Ponder, as crazy as that is. Like, we lost that game because I just did nothing. So now we're bringing in the empties, bring back our Chrome Mox. I don't think I even want Xanted Swarm. Take out the Bayou. Whoops, I clicked on a Rite of Flame, apparently. And then we'll do, like, 2 copies of Ponder, I guess. Let's try this. I've talked about it in previous era battles, but one thing that I learned over time was that it's okay to just board out 4 of a card. Like, in the past, I used to always just, like, shave, like, 1 Chrome Mox, 1 Ponder, 1 Infernal Tutor. And in hindsight, it ended up just being very wrong. I think we keep this, but it's a little slow. Play the Bloodstained Iron Pass. Polluted Delta. Delver of Secrets. Another Duress. Would have been nice to have a fetch that could grab the basic island here, but I just don't. We'll grab Volcanic. Play the Brainstorm. Well, that was really good. So we'll put back Burning Wish. Brainstorm. Play the Lotus Petal. And I think now I want a Duress. And then if the coast is clear, I could actually empty the Warrens this turn. Play Duress. Force Daze. We'll take the Brainstorm. Pass the turn. I could have beaten one of those. I could not beat 2. And the Delver of Secrets transforms to Gitaxian Probe, so Brian knows what I have now. Plays the Wasteland. Ouch. What's the draw? Burning Wish. That does allow me to empty. We'll play Duress, see if this even resolves. I imagine Brian's going to Daze, and then I have to guess if Brian has the other blue card. Does not draw land. Okay. It's going to be a close one. 8 Goblins versus a Delver of Secrets and lands. Brian does not attack, which is probably a good sign for me. Draw a Lion's Eye Diamond. At this point, we're supposed to just hold our cards in case I eventually empty the Warrens again. Brian will block and take 7 down to 10. Fetches down to 9. Plays another land. Doesn't attack. We'll get in there. Brian will block and take 6 down to 3. Fetches down to 2. Did you draw your out? Brian tapping for a black mana makes me very nervous. Brian is surgicaling for information. That shouldn't be allowed. That should not be allowed. Okay. So Brian is going to see how I boarded. So that way he knows how to board for future matches against the... I'm playing the same deck list every round. Brian is swapping decks in every match, so he's gaining a little future equity here. And then Brian concedes. So we've won match number 1 with 2017 the Epic Storm with the Empty the Warrens plan when I remember to board it in. All right, we are now 1-0. Let's go hopefully win match number 2 versus Elves.
Building a new deck usually means getting hit with a dozen different shipping fees from a dozen different sellers. It adds up fast, and honestly, it's the worst part of buying cards. That's why I switched to Card Trader Zero. You shop their global marketplace, but instead of having every seller ship to you, they ship to Card Trader's hub first. Card Trader then packs everything into a single shipment for you, and it saves a small fortune on shipping fees. This package from Card Trader just arrived. These are 4 Dark Rituals that came from 4 different sellers, but they all arrived in one envelope, and every card was quality checked by the Card Trader team before it hit my door. Check out the link in the description to try Card Trader Zero's optimizer for yourself. Stop paying for multiple shipments and get just one.
We're back for the second match versus Brian on Elves. Many of you may not know this, but when I met Brian, he was an Elves main. He was not the blue Ponder Island Keep person. So Brian is playing what I know him best as, and I have this slow hand. In theory, when I first saw this hand, I was like, well, you could keep, because if like Brian has Green Sun Zenith for Gaddock Teague or anything like that, I have Burning Wish into the sideboard Void Snare, and that's obviously good. But then I have this like 3-land hand that's really slow. What if Brian just has like a fast Elves hand that kills me on turn 3 or 4? My hand is nothing. Like if you draw Lion's Eye Diamond, it's good, but that's really the only thing that fixes this hand. I think you're supposed to just mulligan. Now I'm just a second land away. I'll keep, get rid of the Infernal Tutor. So a Lotus Petal wins the game for me. Brian plays a Dryad Arbor. Swamp Pass. Alright, I take a Chrome Mox right now. Chrome Mox into Lotus Petal. Fetches with Wooded Foothills, Glimpse of Nature, Aquarian Ranger, untaps, Wirewood Symbiote, picks up, recast. They're digging for Gaia's Cradle here. Deathrite Shaman, passes the turn. Come on, Lotus Petal. I don't know why I didn't think of a land. A land was the most obvious thing here. I was specifically asking for Lotus Petal when I didn't need it. Okay, the old Rite of Flame Dark Ritual ad nauseum, bringing me back. Here we go. 3 is yes, 4 is no. So we're going to just spam this button. I'd like to see some zeros, please. I'm at 6. I'm at 5. Alright, I'm dead to the main deck empty. No! Why? Why? Ah, brutal. Okay. Devastating. I'm sure Brian's loving this from the other side of the table. Oh, geez. So I think you could probably take out Duress in this matchup. I don't love it. I also don't really love the empty versus elves. So we could probably take that out. Bring in the Bayou and some copies of Abrupt Decay. It means that I'm not stone cold dead to a Gitaxian. Games like that make me not miss ad nauseum. I will say that. Game 2 we're on the play. Keep. This is a good hand. Gitaxian Probe. Ryan always with the Mindbreak traps over there. We'll play Lion's Eye Diamond. Let's play Underground Sea. Brainstorm. Alright, we're going to put the Bayou on the bottom. And then Infernal Tutor. Play the Chrome Mox. Pass the turn. I might have to bring back in Duress if Brian's playing Mindbreak Trap. I was an imprintable short on my Brainstorm of trying to win this turn, so I have to pass. Maybe I should have put back the Chrome Mox, because then it's in my deck for ad nauseum. Fetching. We'll grab the Bayou. Alright, this might be crazy. I'm going to just pass here, so that way, like, Brian isn't doing anything. So unless Brian draws exactly Thoughtseize plus a Black Source, I'm free to just ad nauseum next turn with a land drop through the Mindbreak. Well, there's the Black Source. There's Bayou. You didn't draw Thoughtseize. Come on, Brian. You didn't do it. Green Sun Zenith for Dryad Arbor. Okay, so we're going to tap for 2, holding priority. Infernal Tutor. Sacrifice the Lion's Eye Diamond for 3 black. Infernal Tutor will now resolve. We'll grab ad nauseum. This is spell number 2. So the Mindbreak Trap cannot counter it. And we're hoping that this time ad nauseum doesn't fail us. Okay. I'm at 7 already. 5, 4, 3. What is with these ad nauseums? I'll stop there. We'll play Lotus Petal. And we'll play our island. Cast Ponder. Can I win here? I don't think I can. I'm going to shuffle this. We drew Lotus Petal. We'll play the Lotus Petal. Play another Ponder. Well, there's the Cabal Therapy I need. We'll leave the Therapy on the top because I'm going to have to discard some number of cards anyway. And now we'll go to cleanup. Discard Polluted Delta, an Infernal Tutor, and the Ponder. Green Sun Zenith for 1. This for, like, Aquarian Ranger? It is for Aquarian Ranger. Okay. Heritage Druid. Finhorn Elves. And now Brian could play Glimpse of Nature. And now so Brian's hoping to just draw into a chain of elves here. Like another Aquarian Ranger would be the best draw, I think. And Brian is passing the turn. We'll play Cabal Therapy. And Brian concedes. Okay, so we win game number 2. Although we had to fight really hard to do so. Am I really bringing Duress back in? I feel so bad. Maybe I'll get rid of an island. Like 2 Ponder, maybe. We'll try this. Game 3 on the draw. So this hand is quite incredible. You have Cabal Therapy to name Mindbreak Trap. You have the Infernal Tutor, Dark Ritual, Lion's Eye Diamond for ad nauseum. What you need is another Dark Ritual or Lion's Eye Diamond, so that way you can win on turn 1 through a Mindbreak Trap. And Brian is mulliganing down to 4. Alright, Brian, let's see those 4. Gaia's Cradle go, huh? That doesn't scream Mindbreak Trap. I think I'm going to just brainstorm on my main phase here and see what my options are. We'll play the Brainstorm. We'll put a pair of Infernal Tutor on top. Play Lion's Eye Diamond. Lotus Petal, pass the turn. Windswept Heath for a Dryad Arbor. Llanowar Elves. So I can play Cabal Therapy, name Mindbreak Trap, and then ad nauseum. Wirewood Symbiote is the only other card. Yeah, let's just go for it. Dark Ritual. Hold Control. We'll sacrifice for 3 block. Ad nauseum, I'm going to need a better performance out of you here. Okay. I'm at 19. Some zeros would be nice. There's 1. 2. I'm at 11. Come on, Burning Wish. I'm at 6, 5, 4. I guess I have Infernal Tutor. I could just stop here. We'll play Diamond. I forgot that I started off by revealing Infernal Tutor. Imprint the Abrupt Decay. Rite of Flame, Rite of Flame, Rite of Flame. Play the other petal. Tap for a black. Infernal Tutor holding priority. Sacrifice for 3 black. We grab the Burning Wish. Yes. Now we select Tendrils of Agony. Back in the day, you only played 1 in the sideboard. There was none in the main deck. You were more of an Empty the Warrens deck than anything else. Boom. All right, we're 2-0. I think that's more wins than I got in both of the previous era battles. Like I got 1 win in each, so we've already matched our record. Let's see if I can manage to get another win in match number 3.
Looking to make playing your favorite combo deck much easier? Look no further than the Epic Storm Mini Combo Pack, which is available at theepicstorm.com/shop for $15.99. This token combo pack comes with 84 double-sided tokens featuring classic Storm and Mana tokens with new inclusions such as our modern Ruby Storm package, but that's not all. Our token pack covers a variety of formats from Pauper to CDH with new tokens. Stop on by theepicstorm.com/shop and make an easy decision to elevate your combo game.
All right, round number 3, Brian again, obviously. And this time, Brian is playing Eldrazi. So against Eldrazi, you really want fast hands, but I don't know, like without Echo Vaons and, you know, all that stuff, I don't know if you're really allowed to just like ship playable hands like this, but maybe you are. Let's mulligan, see if I can find a turn 1 hand. This is turn 1 Empty the Warrens. We'll keep this. I wish it was for 10 and not 8, but beggars can't be choosers. Keep, and we'll bottom Cabal Therapy. We'll play Volcanic Island into Lotus Petal, and then another from Mox. And I will imprint the Duress, and 8 little goblins sitting in a tree. Can 8 goblins get the job done versus Eldrazi? I'm a little hesitant here. I feel like 10 would, 8 might not. But I don't think I'm supposed to mulligan to 5 versus Eldrazi. So I'm really hoping that Brian kept a hand based on like Chalice of the Void. Endless one. So that's not good for me. We'll probe, look at Brian's hand. Warping Whale in the main deck, huh? A little surprised by that. We'll attack. Brian will take 6. City of Traders. And now Brian can play 2 copies of Matter Reshaper. I just need mana now. So I can cast this ad nauseum. I guess we'll play Burning Wish. I don't even know what I want here. Yes. I don't want any of these cards. Yeah, I really do not want any of these. Grape Shot, I guess? It was either Grape Shot or the Void Snare, but I don't think either of them are particularly good. We will double block. I think at this point I'm just trying to preserve my life total for ad nauseum. Reality Smasher. That's not good for me. Another Burning Wish. I think the writing is on the wall here. I'm going to concede. 8 was not enough. I think 10 would have won, but 8 was not. It just wasn't good enough. So we lose game number 1. Warping Whale. Really surprised by that. We're bringing in Bayou and the Abrupt Decays. And I think here, maybe it's just Ponder. Just a clean 4 for 4. Because you don't really have time to be playing Ponder versus Eldrazi. Let's try this. Game 2 on the play. Cannot keep. Ay, ay, ay. I think I'm supposed to keep this. Bottom the Bayou. We'll play Gitaxian Probe. I go to 18. Sword of Amethyst. Chalice of the Void. Eldrazi Mimic. What a hand. We'll grab our basic. Play Duress. Take the Thorn of Amethyst. Pass the turn. Okay, so I know about City of Traders. I do not know any other cards. We'll just play Polluted Delta and pass. Ancient Tomb. I go to 15. Play the island. Let's brainstorm. I don't really want to pay life for Gitaxian Probe. We'll get rid of Probe and maybe it's Lotus Petal Therapy, actually. Now we'll fetch. Grab Badlands. Burning Wish. Yes. We'll grab Void Snare. Pass the turn. I need mana. Really badly. Another Ancient Tomb. I'm at 12. That was a fine draw. So if I probe and hit more mana, I could just try to win right now. So the island pays for Void Snare. Dark Ritual. I'd actually have to hit exactly a Dark Ritual or Lion's Eye Diamond, so I'm not going to pay the life. I'll just pay mana. And Brian drew a Warping Whale. We will pass. City of Traders. This puts me down to 10. Another Dark Ritual. So if I could get a little sneaky here And if Brian counters the Void Snare, I can actually combo, but I don't know if he'll do it. And then puts me in a tougher spot if he doesn't. So I think I'm at 10. I have to try to bluff him here. I'm going to Void Snare the Chalice. Brian has to take the bait. All right, Warping Wheel gone. I can play my land. Dark Ritual, Infernal Tutor. I mean, I could just get Empty the Warrens. I wasn't even thinking about that. If I just get Empty here, it's 12 Goblins versus an Eldrazi Mimic. But Brian's also pretty close to activating Ivugan. So it's Ad Nauseam at 10 life with no lands left in her. I guess I have a Bayou, but I've already played my land. Empty the Warrens. Oh, I could have Infernal Tutored again. For some reason, I messed up. I actually could have had 14 Goblins here instead. Oh, why am I so bad? I was doing the math in my head and I kept on coming up one short. But I think it's because I was thinking about Ad Nauseam for some reason. Yeah, I definitely messed up. So I think I was supposed to leave one back. So that way I'm not dead to Reality Smasher. But I definitely punted here. Because if I had 2 more Goblins, this wouldn't be a close game. Where it's currently a close game. Ooh, Brian drew another Warping Wheel. So I'm dead to Reality Smasher off the top. Matter Reshaper. That doesn't save him here. I didn't deserve to win this. I miscounted and I should have easily have won, but instead it looks like I'm going to scrape by. Okay, game 3. I'm going to resubmit the same deck. Need to play better. Am I really supposed to mulligan this? I don't think so. But there's no chance Brian keeps a hand that doesn't do anything. I'm going to keep and then I'm going to lose to Chal Zero or Thorn of Amethyst. But this hand wins if Brian keeps a hand that's just like turn 1 Warping Whale. Name's Eldrazi. And turn 1 Thorn. Yep. I have to go to discard. Yeah, being on the draw for game 3 cost me here. Need mana. Land mana, not Lion's Eye Diamond mana. Get rid of the Gitaxian Probe. Parakas. Into Matter Reshaper. That's a land. Play Lotus Petal. Pass the turn. City of Traders. Reality Smasher. I think this game's over. I go to 12. We'll play Lotus Petal and pass. I'm at 4. Another Matter Reshaper. Alright, we can at least look at what Brian's hand is. He can't stop me from doing that. Wasteland, City of Traders. Okay. We lose match number 3, and we are now 2-1. Moxfield.com is the easiest way to build a Magic deck online. They support over 30 formats, including Legacy and many other Eternal formats. There are so many options to view decks the way that you want, from text view to individual cards, mana value, and even card price. There's also light mode and dark mode. My personal favorite feature is card tags. This way you can sort cards by function. Moxfield supports collection tracking, Scryfall search, decklist feedback, and so much more. Follow me on Moxfield.com so you can stay updated on all of my decks. The 4th match, we are facing Check Pile, a 4-color Deathrake Shaman control deck. This hand is okay, it's not amazing. I don't love the double Infernal Tutor, Underground Sea, and Thoughtseize. They take the Brainstorm. I'm a little surprised by that. But I guess we'll know once my Gitaxian Probe resolves. Look at Brian's hand. Inquisition of Kozilek, Caligan's Command, Baleful Strix, and Snapcaster Mage. We'll play Bloodstained Mire and pass. I imagine Brian's going to play Inquisition of Kozilek. This might be a really good game to go Burning Wish for the sideboard Past in Flames. Looks like Brian is going to play the Inquisition of Kozilek. If I was in Brian's shoes, I'd take the Dark Ritual here, and he does the same. Play Scalding Tarn. Ugh, another Infernal Tutor, gross. We'll grab Underground Sea. Play Burning Wish. Yeah, the 3rd Infernal Tutor was not a good draw. We'll grab Past in Flames. Pass the turn. Wasteland? Okay. I need a Brainstorm. That's what this hand really needs here. Now Brian plays the Baleful Strix. There we go! Brainstorm. Come on, deck. Be good. Could have been better. I think we just put a pair of Infernal on top. Actually, Brian can Thoughtseize, so let's hide Diamond on top. Brian can go land, Snapcaster Mage, Thoughtseize, or Inquisition. Night's Whisper. Into another Wasteland. Brutal. I guess we'll play Chrome Mox. Play Ponder. I can't afford to keep this. Shuffle. Pass the turn. Tropical Island. So Brian can go Snapcaster, discard, or Caligan's Command. Kill my Mox. Discard an Infernal Tutor, I guess. Lotus Petal. So if you're brave, you could try to win here. You'd have to be incredibly brave, though. You could go Rite of Flame, Flashback, Past in Flames, Gitaxian Probe, and hope to hit. And then from there, you actually have a win. But you'd have to hit a black land, or a Lotus Petal, or a Lion's Eye Diamond. I don't know if I'm brave enough to go all in on a Gitaxian Probe. We have 10 lands in the deck, 3 Lotus Petals. So that's 13 hits with 3 redraws of Gitaxian Probe. You know what? For the content, let's do it. Rite of Flame. Because next turn, Brian has Snapcaster into discard. It's going to put me back a turn anyway. Flashback, Past in Flames. And now we'll Gitaxian Probe. Brian has the Force of Will. I actually hit here, but I can't beat the Force of Will. Ah, that's a bummer. Dark Ritual. Alright. I mean, I tried to do a cool thing. We almost did, but unfortunately we lose the game instead. We'll bring in Xanted Swarm, Bayou, get rid of the Empty the Warrens. It's not really good in this matchup. That deck traditionally plays a bunch of sweepers, so I don't think we want it. And then, like, you could bring in the Tendrils because, like, Brian's discard deck probably has Surgical in it. And I think it wouldn't be that crazy, and I'm sure it sounds crazy, to board out Rite of Flame here. We're not trying to be an ultra-fast deck. But I think you could probably board out Rite of Flame and then just, like, bring in, like, 1 Abrupt Decay or something. Or even the 4th Cabal Therapy. Let's do that. Submit. Game 2 on the play. Tendril's not very good here. Empty... I guess you could just try to jam a turn 1 empty versus the Force deck that also has sweepers, if I had left it in. I'm going to mulligan. Brother, you're killing me. Down to 5. Bottom of land and Infernal Tutor. Hope to spike a Dark Ritual off this Gitaxian Probe. Wow, we did it. And they don't have Force. Okay. Getting away with one here, I feel like. Grab the basic. Dark Ritual. Dark Ritual. Ad nauseum. I'm at 16. Lotus Petal, stop there. Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox, imprint Burning Wish, Dark Ritual, play another Lotus Petal, Tendrils of Agony. Boom! Got lucky. Double Fluster. Ooh, no Rite of Flame needed. We've opened up a 4-lander with no protection. We must mulligan. This hand isn't much better, but we'll keep. Polluted Delta, pass. We'll fetch, grab the basic swamp, play Duress. We'll take Force of Will, pass the turn. Brian plays the Nile Spellbomb. We draw a terrible Chrome Mox. We'll just play a land and pass. Brian drew a Polluted Delta, so he can now play the Baleful Strix if he so chooses, but it doesn't look like he's going to. Infernal Tutor. So I could Cabal Therapy, take Baleful Strix, and then empty my hand in Infernal Tutor for Ad nauseum. But I'm a mana short of even casting it next turn, so I'd have to spike a mana. And I would need Brian to not have anything. So I think I'm going to just pass here instead. Brian fetches with the Polluted Delta, grabs an Underground Sea, and is using the Nile Spellbomb. Inquisition of Kozilek, and I regret every decision I've ever made. Brutal. Baleful Strix. What if we just draw the 1 of Ad nauseum? 1 of 50 odds? Of course we're going to draw it. We'll play Cabal Therapy. Force of Will. Brian did have Force of Will. And now we'll play Xanted Swarm. And now we need to draw into something really good. Brian drew Wasteland. That hurts. Attacks for 1. We go to 18. I'd love a Brainstorm here. That is not a Brainstorm. Attack just to prove a point. So Burning Wish became a good draw with that Lion's Eye Diamond because it does allow us to empty the Warrens. Deathray Shaman. The rest doesn't help me. Swing. We just have to pass. Brian drew Ponder. Volcanic Island. And is using Deathray for mana here. Jace. Yep. Uses Jace to Brainstorm. So this Xanted Swarm as my protection might be coming to an end. So I really need to draw a payoff right now. Burning Catacombs. And Brian now does not attack. Okay, well, we drew the Burning Wish. So I do have protection, but I can pretty much only empty the Warrens here. So we'll attack. So my Xanted Swarm goes away. We'll play Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox. We'll imprint Duress, Chrome Mox. No. Hold Control, and now we'll Burning Wish holding priority. Sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond for 3 red. Yes. We'll grab a copy of Empty the Warrens and hope that 12 Goblins is good enough because it's really all I can do. I imagine Brian has sweepers in that deck list because that deck played a lot of sweepers at the time. And I remember losing a lot to like Marsh Casualties, I think was the sweeper they played back then. And Brian's not even going to fetch, which is probably a really bad sign for me. 5 cards in Brian's hand. Another Deathray Shaman. Like, this might not even be good enough. Because Brian has 2 blasts in hand too. So he can kill 2, block 3. We're just going to attack out at Brian. I think sending any number of Jace would be a mistake. Did not Hydroblast or Blue Blast any of the goblins. That's interesting. Maybe Brian's not realizing his mistake. Nope, just using Deathray Shaman. Okay. There was a long pause there at the end of combat, so I wasn't sure. And now he's doing it at the end step, but Brian knew I had no hand, so I think it was just an oversight to not kill the goblins. So I do have a main deck Tendrils of Agony, which could win the game if I drew it, because I could attack and then mini Tendrils, but who knows. Brian's at 8. We drew another land, unfortunately. Swing out at Brian. Brian can block 2 and take 5. He can also gain 2 life by exiling Baleful Strix, and that's what happens here. And then exiles another Deathray Shaman to go up to 7. Fetches down to 6. Brian draws 3 with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Plays Ponder. Now plays a Brainstorm. It's so many cards. I also worry because, like, even if I were to draw my Tendrils of Agony, Brian showed us 2 copies of Flusterstorm game 2. So what are the odds Tendrils even gets the job done? Probably pretty slim. Duress, we'll hold that in case I actually draw Tendrils. Swing. Brian takes 3 down to 3. Exiles my Empty the Warrens. Okay, I'm at 11. Brian fetches down to 2. Him to Torok. That's mean. I was not expecting him to Torok. Just flat out rude. Dark Ritual does not help me here. Pass the turn. I go to 9 from Deathrite Shaman. And then Brian exiles his own Brainstorm and I go to 7. So I am dead now in 1 turn cycle. I get 1 more draw step. Brian can exile 2 on my end step, untap, exile 2 more, and I'm dead. Inquisition of Kozilek. I have 1 out here, and it's to draw exactly Tendrils of Agony and for Brian to have nothing. That is not it. Okay, so we lose match number 4. I mean, honestly, this was a pretty good match. It just didn't go my way. And we are now 2-2 with 1 match left to play. The Gold Sabertooth times the Epic Storm collection has arrived with 3 full-size tokens showcasing the beloved Dark Ritual, CDH Rogsai, and Legacy of the Epic Storm for just $5. On the backs of these tokens, there's a place for my signature or a custom message. In addition to these sweet tokens, a friendly reminder that all orders that ship from theepicstorm.com also come with a signed Storm token from yours truly. The final round, match number 5. I am on the play versus Brian Coval, aka Bosh N Roll, playing Reanimator. This hand is pretty good. We'll keep. We'll play Badlands and Duress. Oh, it's Blue Reanimator. I was under the impression it was Rakdos. Okay. We'll take the Brainstorm. Play Lion's Eye Diamond to avoid discard, and now we'll pass. Fluted Delta, Lotus Petal. I imagine this is going to be a turn 1 Collective Brutality to discard a card. And Brian's draw was Griselbrand. No way! Absolute perfects. I think I've lost. Wow. I'm the break sometimes. Oh, I guess I could have taken the Collective Brutality over Brainstorm. Took Rite of Flame. That's really interesting because Dark Ritual or Lion's Eye Diamond kills Brian. So does a Rite of Flame. Thoughtseize Bug. I think the pick was Infernal Tutor. Crack for black. We'll grab Ad Nauseam. Play it. Okay. Let's see how we do. This is pretty good so far. Empty the Warrens was not pretty good. But on the bright side, I can flip down to 2 life now. That'll do. We could stop there. Play the Lotus Petal, play Chrome Mox, Imprint, Infernal Tutor, Dark Ritual, Lion's Eye Diamond, play another Lion's Eye Diamond, sacrifice Lotus Petal for red, hold Control, we'll play Burning Wish, sacrifice for 3 black, grab Tendrils of Agony. Oh, wait, I missed. Brian was at 21. I'm an idiot. Oh my, I forgot about the life gain from Collective Brutality. I had it 1. Brian's conceding because he says you could have just probed, right? And I said, yeah, it's my fault, and then he conceded. I didn't deserve that. I mean, realistically, I should lose this. Brian did a nice thing right there that he did not have to do. We'll bring in the Bayou and the Xanid Swarm. I just wasn't paying attention. I should have just played a Gitaxian Probe and gone down 1 life. Down to 1 life and then won that way. We'll get rid of the basic island for the Bayou. And then I need 1 more cut for the other copy of Xanid Swarm, which is probably a Ponder. Let's try this. Game 2 on the draw. We will mulligan. This is fine. We'll keep. Get rid of the Cabal Therapy. Underground Sea, pass. We'll play Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal. And I'm going to Brainstorm to hide the Infernal Tutor on top of the deck. So next turn I'm still a mana short. I was hoping I could hit some mana there and I didn't. Alright, we're going to hide Cabal Therapy and Infernal Tutor and pass the turn. And Step Entomb. But that card's banned, Brian. It's banned. You can't play it, unlike Gitaxian Probe. Gitaxis. Okay. That's a spicy one. That is a Gitaxis. Brian will draw 7 cards. I don't even think I'm capable of winning this. Like, even if Brian's hand is nothing, I don't think I can win this. My top card is a Cabal Therapy that I can't do anything with. I guess we just look at Brian's hand and then realize we lose. A hand that doesn't even do anything. And I still can't win. I can only make 4 mana. And Brian has Iona, Shield of Emeria next turn. I could go Burning Wish, Rite of Flame, Burning Wish, Cabal Therapy on Reanimate, but that's not really a winning line. That just delays me losing. I think we have to go to the next game, unfortunately. Okay, let's try it again. Alright, the final game of this era battles. We're on the play. I want to keep this one. Like, having Xanid Swarm is pretty good. But you have to draw, like, pretty well in order for this to do anything. I think we're supposed to mulligan. This is better. I hope we get to do the ad nauseum trick here. It's been a really long time since I've got to do it. So we're hoping to brainstorm into Gitaxian Probe and then use Lion's Eye Diamond to cast the ad nauseum from the top of the deck. We would need Brian to not have any interaction whatsoever, and for me to hit either Gitaxian Probe, Ponder, or Brainstorm. We'll play Polluted Delta, Lion's Eye Diamond, and now we're really hoping to hit a blue draw spell here, and for Brian's hand to be terrible. Brainstorm. We hit it, so we'll put Ad Nauseam on top. Can't remember the last time I did this. Hold priority, cast Brainstorm, black, Brainstorm. 2 cards on top, Ad Nauseam. Hey, look at us. Okay, let's pop this open. We'll stop at 3. And this time, even though I pretty much can't even put tendrils on the stack without accidentally casting enough spells, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We'll play Duress just to see Brian's hand. Well, that was a fast Gristlebrand, so I can see why he kept it. And we finished this 3-2. So we won this era battles, which was pretty sweet, versus Dimir Reanimator. This is the deck list. Yeah, this was a nice walk down memory lane. I really enjoyed playing it. I mean, I have fond memories of the Gitaxian Probe, Cabal Therapy, Empty the Warrens package. So it was nice to get to do it again today. Very different playstyle than what the Epic Storm looks like these days. The Epic Storm is definitely like the Ship of Thesis, where it's changed so much over time. And this era was really, really special. I have such fond memories of playing this deck list on the SCG Tour and, you know, all that great stuff. If you stick around, I will be joined by Brian in just a moment, but I would like to say thank you to Matthew Story and everyone else that donated to make era battles happen. This was really fun to do. I'm glad I got to do it, even though we only ended up doing 3 of them. It was still a nice experience. So thank you to everyone who chipped in, everyone that watched, and thank you to Mr. Coval himself, who will be joining me in just a second.
Hello. Welcome to the debrief section. You beat me more than I beat you. Good job.
First time for everything, Brian. Thank you. I'm really, really proud right now.
Yeah, you could tell 2 things. One, your deck building improved like over this is I think 6 to 7 years since we started the eras battle in deck building, and then also the cards were better. Gitaxian Probe plus Cabal Therapy, disgusting stuff, and I know you've been waiting for this moment. I believe this is your favorite era of the deck, right?
Yeah, it's one of them. I don't know if I have a specific one. I'm also really fond of, and people do not like this era, but there was a short window where I finished out Wishclaw Talisman TES right before Underworld Breach hit. And people may not remember this, but TES was the 3rd most popular deck in Goldfish for like that 2 months. And then Underworld Breach hit, and my deck, died. But yeah.
But that only lasted 6 weeks. So we're back on top, back in the saddle.
Yeah. But yeah, I love this build. It was so much fun to play. It was nice playing a deck with real lands in it. Like, that was the biggest thing. I wasn't killing myself to City of Brass or losing my lands to Gemstone Mine. There was a few points during the video where I was like, oh yeah, that's how this works. It's been so long since I've played this style of list where I was just like, oh yeah, did that wrong, or anything like that. I'm really glad that it got to happen. The final game of the league, the old brainstorm, put ad nauseum on top, and then cantrip into it trick. Like, I can't remember the last time I did that. That was awesome.
Yeah, when you had, on my narration side, it was like, LED, he might just be playing around discard. Second LED, oh, this might get dangerous. Then you brainstorm, but then you pass priority. I was like, oh, okay, no, we're fine. And then pedal second brainstorm, sack up. Like, come on, man. Messing with my emotions over here.
I didn't mean to pass priority if I did. But yeah.
On the first brainstorm, like, you resolved one brainstorm completely, and then you went pedal second brainstorm, hold priority.
Yeah.
And like, I thought we were in the clear.
Yeah, it was very kind of you to concede when you didn't have to. I was just like, yep, I just punted this. I'm an idiot, which is my own fault.
Yeah, I mean, I figured you would be checking life totals more closely if it was a Grand Prix or something that actually mattered. And in the exhibition, you had the win. So there you go. All yours.
Thank you. You're too kind.
I think so.
So match one, I'm curious, were you playing Death Rates in your Grixis Delver build, or did you just not see them?
Yeah, that was my list that I top 8'd Eternal Weekend with in 2017.
Nice.
It was Deathrite Shamans, 2 Snapcasters, 2 True Names, 2 Young Peasies, 1 Tombstalker.
Ooh, the spice.
That was the goods back then.
I remember the original Murktide region.
Yes.
I remember back in the day on MTG The Source, people, like, they talked about Tombstalker. They're like, it's too big, it's too cheap, it should probably be banned. And now there's Murktide region, which just makes that card look like trash.
Yeah, I definitely remember I had a little bit of a boomer feet in the mud moment when Murktide came out and people started shoving it in all the decks. And I was like, we've had Tombstalker the whole time. This isn't a revolution. Turns out 8/8's a lot bigger than 5/5, and also blue is better than black as a base place to start. So I missed the boat on that one a little bit.
Yeah. So what was your favorite deck that you played today? I did mention that, like, when I met you, you were an Elves main, so I wasn't sure if it'd be that or a different deck. You've played a lot of different decks over the year.
Yeah, this is right before, or right after, right in really the era where I switched from an Elves main to a Brainstorm main. I told the story on my side during the Elves match while I was mulling to 4 into non-functional hands and just dying. I played Elves from like 2010 to 2016 religiously all the time, and then kind of got fed up a little bit about, like, you look at 7 and your only mana is Dryad Arbor, and then you mull to 6 and your only mana is Gaia's Cradle. Now you're on 5 and you have to keep a 1-lander that doesn't really work. And it's like, is there something better out there for me than this? And then I switched to Grixis Delver. It was the Gitaxian Probe Deathrite Shaman version of Grixis Delver, and I won the Star City Classic that day. Like, it was the first time I played the deck. I just won the entire tournament. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I've been doing this? And that was kind of the end of that era for me. And I had top 8'd Eternal Weekend with that deck within the year.
That's awesome. So I have a question for you. When I met Jarvis, many of you know Jarvis as the lands guy, but when I met Jarvis, he was an Elves player. And I know that you and Jarvis go way back. Were you originally friends because of Elves, or did you just know each other from tournaments?
No, Jarvis and I met. When I moved to Pittsburgh, he had a number of Pittsburgh connections, even though he's been like a Maryland, DC guy, basically, for as long as I've been aware of his existence. But there was a SCG Open, Legacy Open in Baltimore, where a mutual friend was like, someone I know needs a moat. Do you have a moat? And it was when I was like younger, dumber, and just kept basically a binder with my entire Legacy collection on my person at all times. And I was like, yeah, I have a moat. And that person turned out to be Jarvis. And then homies ever since. But I think that was after his Elves arc. But I remember like Chris Anderson and Reed Duke, both known associates of Jarvis, being big Elves guys in the SCG tour as well. So Jarvis, he's had a lot of success with a lot of decks, and I mostly at this point just understand him as a timeless Legacy expert not as much as any particular deck, though he has had his eras.
Yeah, I mean, I just mostly like to give Jarvis crap. I mean, I know that Jarvis has a really wide range, but people like to refer to Jarvis as the lands guy because he had a really good run for a while there. But yeah.
Yeah, he won a Grand Prix and then unfortunately made a pretty big misstep in the top 8 of the very next Legacy Grand Prix to end up losing a game that he could never lose if he just like sequenced correctly. And sorry, Jarvis, that's not a dagger. He hates when I bring this up, but it did happen. But I mean, it's an insane run to win a Grand Prix, top 8 the next one, and only lose to yourself. Like that. I mean, he had a time with lands, absolutely.
Yeah. But back to what we played today. I was a little surprised because you told me Reanimator, and in my head, I was like, oh, that time period's like when Rakdos Reanimator was taking off. Like, I remember Grand Prix Louisville, which might be one of the worst events I've ever been to. That was like the big coming out of Rakdos Reanimator with like Faithless looting and stuff. So when I dressed you turn 1, I was expecting to see like Rakdos Reanimator because that was like the deck at the time. I was really shocked to see blue. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, what happened there is I knew I wanted to play Grixis Delver. I knew I wanted to play Check Pile. In the past, in our debriefs, you have mentioned that I haven't played very many non-blue decks. So I was like, I'm definitely playing Elves. Eldrazi is very emblematic of the era. And then that Eldrazi list and that Check Pile list were both from the same Eternal Weekend top 8 that my Grixis Delver list was from. So I was certain they were all in the era. Then I had to find a list from our mutual associate, Julian Knop. He was crushing with Elves over in Europe at this time. And then I kind of wanted to find a post-top Miracles list, like a blue-white control. And I pulled it up and it's like, the Jaces, the counterbalances, everything. And I was like, I've done this in every other thing. Is there something else I could feature from this in era instead? And in that same event top 8 that I was looking at 3 different top list Miracles lists, there was this Reanimator list. I was like, yeah, this works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to hate that I tell this story, but Sam Rukas is one of my best friends. And we went to the Triple GP Vegas in, I don't remember the year, but it was post-top Miracles. And he was like 11-0. He's like, I could win one of my next like 3 rounds and I make top 8. And then just chain of bad things happened. And then like to this day, he's like, I don't even want to talk about it. Just like, he's like, Portent is so good. Portent is so good. And then by the end of the weekend, he's like, I don't know if I ever want to play Magic again. So that's what I think of when I think of post-top Miracles.
Yeah, that was a fun era of a handful of my friends and people I knew were getting pretty good at Magic, but none of us were like really good yet. Like Steve Rubin, 9-0 day 1 of a Grand Prix, then kind of fell off to min cash. And then he won a Pro Tour a year later. And it's like, just kind of knocking at the door. Josh Howe, I don't know that that's a household name to many people, but he, I believe, 9-0 or XO'd day 1 of a Grand Prix, day 1 of Nats, and day 1 of some other big tournament, and then failed to convert in all of them. And that was like 3 major events in a row. And it was just like this exciting time of like, I didn't even know anyone who's ever 9-0 day 1 of a Grand Prix. And now I know a couple, and these are people I play with and talk to. And yeah, like what that's a little more inspiring than your Sam Rukas crash out story. But many of us have been there too.
So I remember our group chat at the time, it was like mostly Miracles players. Like they were all just like still trying to play Miracles and preparing for those events at the time. They're like, what's our 60th card? Is it Third Predict? Is it the main deck Engineer Explosives? Is it Council's Judgment? Should it be Counterspell number 2? And I was just like, this is so boring. And they would argue for hours over those 4 cards in one slot. Like that's it. Like the pros and cons and all that stuff. And I was just like, why are we arguing about Council's Judgment here? Like, this is really what we want to be spending our time doing. But I also love to get in the weeds of Storm stuff. So it's probably just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I find that those conversations, you have all the information you need in the first 3 minutes. And then it's just, but what about this? But what about this? But what about that? And you just say the same things you said in the first 5 minutes. You know where those 4 different cards are good and bad. Well, now, what do you think the metagame's going to be? Make a call. And if you don't know how to predict the metagame, go with your gut, or go with the one you like the most, or go with the one that solves the thing you like losing to the least.
Yeah.
And, yeah. like I said, I used to carry my entire Legacy collection on my back, and then I faded to I bring about 90 cards, like the deck I know I'm going to play, and then a second spread of sideboard options that I hem and haw over late into the night. These days, I bring 75 cards to the event. I'm making no decisions once I leave my home.
That's what I do too. Yeah. So going back to the era battles today, it didn't really come up in our videos, but versus Eldrazi, for example, I don't know if you realized it, but I was playing Void Snare today, which was a big thing during that time period. I could actually Burning Wish for an answer. So when you were on Elves, I was like, oh, I could actually Burning Wish to bounce a Gitaxian if you Green Sun Zenith for it. Because in my head, I'm like, I think that's still their Green Sun Zenith target at the time was Gitaxian. So I was like, ooh, I have this nice little Void Snare. And then Dark Petition was actually the same set as Void Snare, was Magic Origins. So I had a Burning Wish target that could get ad nauseum now, instead of having to play like Ill-Gotten Gains or Diminishing Returns or something like that.
Yeah, and like you bringing up the Void Snare, one of the coolest plays today was I had Chalice on 0. You spent a Burning Wish to bank a Void Snare. I had the Eldrazi counterspell for it, and like you just didn't do it for a couple turns, and then it got to the point where you did do it, and I was like I had created this entire like story about your hand where it's like, if he's willing to spend a whole turn getting a face-up Void Snare into my Chalice on 0, you wouldn't bother with that if your hand was just like ritual, tutor, because you could just send. So like there must be zeros over there. And then I locked in on that. But what was probably actually happening was you didn't care about Chalice on 0, and you were just getting ahead of Thorn of Amethyst in case I drew it, so your handful of rituals could kill as soon as you found a tutor. And on the turn where it actually showed down, I hesitated for a second, and I was like, you kind of have so many lands that you could empty the Warrens anyway, and like, what if this is bait? And it turned out like I countered it, and then you just easily killed me when you could never win that game if I just hold up my counterspell and pick up Chalice. Maybe even replay it on 1 the next turn. Like, thanks for the reset. But yeah, that was a cool... I don't know if you laid those breadcrumbs for me on purpose, or if that's just how it worked out, and then like you found that line to try to bait me with the Void Snare when it mattered.
So the Void Snare was originally Dancer Chalice, at least from my perspective. I was like, if I draw Lion's Eye Diamond, it unlocks the Infernal Tutor in my hand, and then my draws, I want to say, were like Brainstorm and another Dark Ritual or something. And I was like, oh, I can actually just ignore this now. But then I played the Probe, which I think it actually might have been the Brainstorm that I was just talking about, but I played Probe and saw the Warping Whale. And I was like, oh, I can never beat that Warping Whale. So the only way I win this is if I get Brian to think that the Void Snare matters. But if you were paying close attention, Void Snare counters every tutor in my deck now. So, or not Void Snare, Warping Whale. It counters every tutor in the deck. So no matter what I did, Warping Whale shut me down. So I was like, the only way I win this is if he bites here. And then I punted after that. I don't know if you noticed. So I Inferno Tutored, and I was hemming and hawing about ad nauseum from 10 life, and I've already played a land, and I'd have 1 open land, and I'd have to pass the turn into your creature, or I could empty the Warrens. And I started like doing math, and I was like, oh, I'm short a mana to Infernal Tutor for another empty, which would have been for 14, which would have made that an easier win. And then I was still counting the ad nauseum mana. And then I realized after I put empty on the stack, I was like, oh, I did have enough mana to Infernal Tutor into empty, because I had 2 untapped lands. So I think I made 12 goblins when I could have made 14. And 14 would have been very easy, where you had a window of opportunity to kill me, because you then had another Warping Whale. You killed my blocker, and I was dead to a Reality Smasher. And I was like, if I lose this, it's my own fault.
Yep, that is exactly what I was playing to at that point. And yeah, I think I did know that Warping Whale counters all your tutors, but I also know your list is heavy on empty. And if I just but maybe I didn't count your mana enough to realize you didn't need zeros. Like if you had just 5 lands without, I don't remember if you had 4 or 5 lands or exactly what the situation was, but if you had 5 lands there, I can't stop you from emptying anyway, and I should just, bite the bullet and take the thing back to my hand. But if you do have 3 or 4 lands, I think if I believe in my read on your hand, it's right to fight over that. But it was just cool that I gave this entire speech about okay, I know what's in his hand because of all these logic checks, and you just drew out of it, and then it turned out to be awesome bait instead.
So I had 5, but I kept the 5th land in my hand when I played the Void Snare. And I was like, well, maybe we'll get Brian to think that the Void Snare matters more if I have more cards in hand. And then once the Void Snare resolved, I played land number 5. So I don't know if it would have changed your perspective if I did have 5 in play.
Yes, absolutely. Because, yeah, like I said, you could still empty. Like, I was playing around empty specifically, just raw from hand, empty the Warrens, because I know I can break any tutor chain with the Warping Whale. So sandbagging that land, that turn was executed very well. And like in generally about the like the number of goblins, because there were a couple times this league where you made goblins and you didn't win, and I just like beat them by having more or bigger creatures or enough removal. Like one game I used 2 Hydroblast to kill 2 goblins, and then I stabilized at 2. Like that's like a weakness of the deck. There was the one game where you died from 19 to your ad nauseum, which, unlucky, but there's a reason that these aren't the engines in Storm anymore. And then also on the elf side, I mulled to 4 twice looking for a functional hand. I wasn't chasing Mindbreak Trap. I would rather combo you out. I'd rather make it a race. But I just didn't have a hand that worked. And I ended up just stopping on 4s with no lands and Mindbreak Trap both times. But that was like super flimsy. The Reanimator deck felt pretty flimsy as well. Like going for Jin Gitaxis, draw 7, miss on interaction, could still just die right here. And like the combo decks these days, when they do it, it's over. And that was very noticeable how flimsy these decks were, which probably scales appropriately because there's no Force of Negation. There's like a bunch of other tools, Force of Vigor, whatever, all endurance, like all these cards that Modern Horizons and recent printings have given us to slow down stuff like that. But also these combo decks are way better now. And it was just, the cards are just getting better is my point here, I guess.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. So a really cool point I thought during the league was I found a really sick Past in Flames line where I was like, I have to Gitaxian Probe into an initial mana source. It could be a black land or a Lotus Petal. And then I hit the pedal, but then the Gitaxian Probe revealed that you had found Force of Will. And I was like, oh man, like I actually hit my thing, but then you had the card to stop me.
Yeah, that was a fun moment because I saw what you were doing, like way down the stretch. I was like, okay, setting up a Past in Flames, he's probably going to LED to dump it. He won't have a mana floating. There's a Probe in the graveyard. If Probe hits mana, he could go, but then I could just counter the ritual, even if he hits. And like, if he doesn't hit, I get to keep my Force. And it was just like, I knew I had it, but it was fun watching you solve the puzzle and get to the end of the maze and there's no cheese.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was. Are there any other exciting moments? I guess like just the Deathrite Shaman is kind of the story. Deathrite Shaman and Gitaxian Probe are the 2 cards that got banned at the end of this era. I played 3 Deathrite decks out of my 5 possibles, and you're playing Storm, so the true egregiousness of Deathrite really kicks in long games. But there was that one game where you emptied for a lot, and Deathrite was just a 1/2, and it gained 4 life, and it slowly worked your goblins down to nothing. There was also a turn that game, the one where I found Jace, where it was like I brainstormed, and I really wanted to keep some of the cards, but I wanted to keep the cards that were already in my hand, but I also needed a 4th mana to cast Jace, and it was like, oh yeah, Deathrite just taps for mana also.
Yep.
And I got to just keep a perfect, beautiful brainstorm while developing Jace. The Jace brainstorm found my extra land drop after I shuffled away bad cards. It's like, man, this card's dumb. Old Deathrite Shaman.
So I don't remember how to pronounce his last name, but Edgar Magalish?
Something like that.
Yeah. So I remember I met Edgar at GP Orlando, and he's like, hey, I'm EGAD's bunch of numbers on Magic Online. I was like, oh, we play all the time. He's like, I know, I always beat you. And I was just like, yeah, that's true. He's like, just so you know, I don't play Force of Will in my main deck. You always respect it, but it's just not there. He's like, there's so many games you could have just killed me turn 1, but you always respect Force of Will. And it never even occurred to me that Checkpile did not play Force of Will in the main deck all the time. Like it blew my mind when he told me.
Yeah, that came up in one of our other era battles where there were a bunch of like Esper Deathblade. I think I played an Esper Deathblade list with no forces in the main. I think when I was doing my deck selection in one of the previous ones, it was really in in Fuego at the time to play 2 or 3 forces in the 75. And I made sure to find lists that had them because I knew what you were on. And maybe that's not fair to the era, but I mean, I did pick decks that did well at the time. But yeah, it was a whole thing if you're just expecting Shardless Agent Mirrors and Deathrite Shamans and stuff, Force Will's bad.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if you mentioned it on your side, but this is the last era battles. The funding for it kind of dried up. So, if I'm being honest with you, I also think it ended at a reasonable time. The next era would be like the beginning of Fire, and people don't look back fondly on the beginning of Fire. So I think it's like okay for it to end here. But in the future, I think a really fun idea would be, if I could go back, I'd want to play Mox Opal. I'd want to play 4 Mox Opals, 4 Chrome Mox, 4 Gitaxian Probes. I wish I could go back in time and play that deck list for a video. So I think at some point in time, it might be fun to do something like that.
Yeah, if you decide that we want to build our signature decks of the era with cards legal of the era, but current deck building theory and current skill set, let me know. I could be into that.
I might take you up on that.
All right. Do you have anything else, or is this the end of the eras?
I think this is the end of the eras for now.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. If you watched my side, go check out the Epic Storm on YouTube. If you're over there, come check out my side, and see you next time.
Thank you for checking out today's video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. But in our description, you'll find a link to our Discord where you can talk about the deck with other like-minded individuals of varying skill types. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or an expert. There's people there looking to talk combo. Join our Discord.